Welcome to the Empowered Warrior Podcast. My name is Angela Noel, and I am an intuitive coach, acupuncturist, and Chinese herbalist. This podcast is all about empowerment, meaning how you can maintain your personal power in order to have the best life beyond your imagination. An empowered warrior is someone who has the identity of a person who is healthy, radiant, and free from all suffering, and has the tools ready and available to move through life's obstacles with confidence, ease, and a sense of freedom. In this podcast, I bring over 16 years experience in Chinese medicine, countless years of self-development, and a passion for helping others find their personal power. I will be discussing just a few of my favorite topics regarding health from a Chinese medicine perspective, brain habits, and spirituality, so that you can quickly pave your pathway to freedom and be free from the chains that have kept you stuck. My intention with this podcast is to serve as a guide for warriors who want to form a healthy foundation of body, mind, and spirit, and sustain it by changing who they are being from the inside and having a stronger connection to their higher selves. My goal is to help students end the unnecessary suffering that they place on themselves by having poor health habits, negative thought loops, and a lack of self-worth. I'm so happy that you're here. Hello, Empowered Warriors. How are you? This is episode 32, and I'm curious to know in the intro, if you heard the intro, what came to mind when you heard that quote? Powerful people stand as the source of their own power. I don't claim responsibility for that quote, but I heard it this week by one of my mentors, and I was like, whoa, like boom. It really hit me like a ton of bricks, and admittedly, I think I heard this over the weekend because over the weekend I was dealing with something personal and I was really in my head. And if you subscribe to my newsletter, you will know this story because I talked about it this week in my blog about how over the weekend I was feeling, I was in my crap, basically. I was in my crap. There was something going on in my life, nothing crazy, just life, you know. And before I knew it, 2 or 3 days went by and I realized that I was like in this fearful and stressed state. And I woke up yesterday and I thought, okay, I'm still noticing this feeling and this sensation and how it's affecting me. It's affecting my sleep and it's affecting my relationship and it's affecting my work and my creativity because, as you probably already know, when you give your power away to a circumstance, a stressful event, your loved ones, if they're triggering you, when you're giving your power away, every time you do that, you're saying no to yourself. You're saying no to opportunity. You're saying no to financial abundance. You're saying no to basically whatever you want in your life. Because power is like your life force. It's your will. And when you give it away, because each and every one of us, we have our own individual power. Think about turning on a light and what's required of that. Either you need batteries, you need some kind of source, right? You either need batteries or you need an electrical outlet in order to turn on that light. And that's how our power is. We need to preserve that power for ourselves so that we can go out into the world and do what we're meant to do, interact with the people that we interact with, whether it be family or business partners or your children. And every time you give your power away, you are basically taking away all that energy that is meant to fuel you. So a lot of people struggle with this, and I totally get that. They're like, well, you know, what am I supposed to do? Just not care about other people and not tend to my children? And what I want to say about that is that the greatest act of love, warriors, is when you choose to nourish your own power and preserve your energy in such a way so that you are able to offer your most aligned, best self to those that you love, so that you can offer your most aligned, best self to your work. And if you're a follower, many of you who follow me have your own business. I attract a lot of solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, healers, etc. And oftentimes I feel like, especially, I think it's a human thing. Unless you were raised by really awake parents. And I know that there's people out there that are pretty awake, but for the most part, it's not our fault. It's not how we were raised. We weren't raised with this awareness of personal power, of enlightenment, of us being our own creator in our life. And time again, you've probably heard this too. I heard another story recently about how there's this girl in one of the Facebook groups that I'm a part of, and she was talking about how she had like superpowers when she was a kid. She was very, very intuitive, like so many young children are. They're able to see things and hear things that are outside of our normal reality. And oftentimes with adults who are either they're not awake or they've just been away from that part of themselves for so long, or they were taught to be fearful of this, right? I have these friends that came over to our house one time, and we live in a very old 1800s colonial. And think about it. It's 220 years old. Of course, many, many people have been through this house. And when we first moved in, I had this sense of being in this house. And I think that's perfectly normal, and I'm totally at ease with that. When I was little, I was a little afraid because, hear about ghosts and scary things and goblins and, things that scare you in the night and hide under your bed. And it made me realize when I was having this conversation with friends who came to visit, this is like 2 years ago or so, when I was talking about basically that we have, residents here that are not in human form, they got really freaked out. And one of my friends was like, you need to stop talking about this right now. It's scaring me. So, this is a topic. This is not really where I want to go. I didn't plan to talk about ghosts in this episode, but what I did plan on talking about is our personal power and how children are born intuitive. They're born being in tune with things that we don't necessarily see, hear, and feel and experience in 3D reality. So anyway, I didn't mean to go there, but what I'm trying to tell you is that in society, we tend to shun that kind of thing up until recently. And I think it still happens, but I think as we awaken, there is starting to become more and more awareness to the fact that we can create our own reality, right? Everything we see, hear, and feel is an illusion. And if we don't like our lives as they are, we can change that. We always have the choice and ability to change our reality. So, as I was saying earlier in the episode, I was having some challenges. And when I woke up yesterday morning, it was Monday, and I said, okay, I realized that I was still struggling a little bit with whatever was going on from the weekend. I said, okay, enough of this. I need to change my energetic state. I turned on some music, and first of all, I danced and I danced and I danced. And what dancing does, I have a friend, like this is her jam, right? Like she uses dance to help her clients gain abundance. Because when you dance, when you're having fun and when you're doing something that's really pleasurable, like dance, it literally changes your energetic vibration. So I danced. I turned on some of my favorite songs and I danced. And I sat down and I did some of my rituals that I have been basically avoiding not necessarily avoiding, but I kind of got out of integrity, put it that way, with doing all of my rituals, which includes I wake up in the morning and I do self-hypnosis, and then I read a few passages out of some books, sometimes very specific books. Sometimes if there's a book that's kind of calling out to me, I'll pick that up. And I journal. And those are the things, really basically those 3 things that I do every day in the morning. And when I do those things, I notice a huge difference in the way my day is going. So I brought those rituals back in, all of them, because I was doing them very sporadically. And then I realized that as I looked at my to-do list, that there were definitely some items on the to-do list that I was avoiding. And when we avoid or procrastinate, right, usually that is out of fear of not being good enough, or that we're not going to be able to do it well enough, or whatever. Procrastination is just another form of fear. So I tackled a few things on my to-do list that I was avoiding for one reason or the other. And after that, warriors, basically 2 to 3 days of feeling like sludgy and low vibe and not great and worrying and getting into all of my stuff was gone by doing those 3 things. And the reason why I'm sharing this personal story with you is because you can also have this. And, if you're like most people, if you're a human being, a business owner, whoever out there is listening, I'm pretty certain that most of you can relate to this. And that is, if you are struggling with some kind of emotion that is not moving, whether it be fear or anxiety or envy or anger, and you're just staying in that state, first of all, I want to remind you that that is a choice. And to remind you that you can always decide to change your energetic state at any time. And for those of you that are out there listening and you're like, well, Angela, what you're basically saying is that I should be a robot and not have emotions. And that is actually not true at all. I feel like there's some mixed messaging out there right now when it comes to like this positive, like toxic positivity, where you should just be positive all the time and high vibe, like good vibes only. And no, that is not what I'm referring to at all. I'm actually referring to choosing to not allow yourself to be addicted to the pain and struggling of difficult emotions. So, as you may or may not know, what you focus on expands. So if you're noticing that you are in this space of anger or fear, since we're in 2020 right now, let's just talk about fear, okay? And there's a lot of people out there, myself included, that are advising people to stay out of their fear. And I think that is totally okay if you know exactly what you're doing, right? Because I think because of what I was talking about earlier with this toxic positivity, that can be, if you don't know exactly how to handle difficult emotions and you go into toxic positivity, basically that's avoidance. And that's not good either. That you're not, like in Chinese medicine, you want to always be moving your qi, your life force, right? That is how your tissues and your cells and your muscles and your bones and your brain, that's how everything gets nourished in your body, is when qi and blood is allowed to move freely in the body. And when qi and blood is stuck or stagnant, right? Think about the traffic jams that you get stuck in, right? You're on the freeway, the highway, and you're just stuck. It doesn't feel good, does it? That is the same thing with emotions, right? What is a word? What is the main word that is in emotion? It's motion, right? They are here. Emotions are our teachers, and they are here to teach us and then move through them, right? So again, talking about the anger and the fear and the anxiety that I was referring to earlier in this episode, I realized that, oh my gosh, I was allowing and choosing to stay in this stuck emotional state. And as a result, it kept perpetuating and perpetuating and perpetuating until it was like this big, giant thing that felt really hard to deal with, right? At least that was the illusion that I was perceiving at the time was, oh my gosh, this is so difficult. So what I want to suggest to you, warriors, and this is not going to be a very long episode today, is that if you're finding yourself in a difficult state, whether it be fear or anxiety. There's so much attachment that I'm noticing to our emotional states, right? So for those of you that identify as being anxious or having anxiety, when I had my acupuncture practice, one thing that I heard a lot from clients is they would refer to their anxiety as if they were referring to it as something that they own or something that is part of them, right? Like my anxiety acts up when I go to parties. And what do you think when you're saying my anxiety, like you're claiming ownership to it? What signal are you sending to your subconscious mind every time you say something like my anxiety, my anger, my fear? And my invitation to you, warriors, is to notice these emotions coming in, to simply acknowledge them, sit with them. And for me, what works really powerfully is just to give them a little bit of time, not ignore them, not dismiss them, not toxic positivity them away, because they won't go away that way, but to invite them in and to put on your curiosity hat and ask, what is this emotion teaching me? What is this emotion telling me? And for me, sometimes it requires a few deep breaths with my eyes closed and some journaling. And what I find to be a really powerful exercise is I have this headset, and every morning I put on my headset with my YouTube channel. I Google binaural beats on YouTube, binaural beats, and I find a song that just really resonates with me, what feels good. And binaural beats are just these musical pieces. I don't know, synthesizers or, they're it's electronic music, but they play at certain frequencies, like higher frequencies. And let me tell you, whenever I put on binaural beats track that really feels good to me personally, I just go right into the zone. So I go on YouTube, I find a binaural beats, and if there's something particular that I'm working on, like abundance or prosperity or stress or anxiety or whatever, I'll put that in binaural beats for financial abundance. And then I set an intention to allow whatever needs to come through me through my journaling. And that's often how I get so many of my answers and my truths and my downloads and my ahas is through journaling. And for some people, it's through meditation. Some people, it's going through walks. And all of these things work for me personally, but I think it's a matter for you warriors, what works best for you. So I hope this makes sense because to be perfectly honest with you, I am recording this at the end of the day and I am very, very tired. But I find that this topic is so important because as you're probably noticing, and maybe you've been dealing with this for a good part of your life, emotions, when they're not in balance, can ruin your life, right? Especially the negative emotions like fear and anger, right? Jealousy, envy. They can ruin your life. And I just have found through, my experience in personal development that we are so powerful as individuals, warriors. And what I really would like to see for humanity is for all of us to just grow and evolve and basically use our emotions in a very positive way as a tool for growth, because that's why they're here, right? So every time you have a difficult emotion, I'll tell you what I do. Sometimes I don't do this all the time, but a lot of times when something's coming through that's feeling difficult, especially around the new moon, I get kind of excited because I sense there's a new lesson coming. So to recap your takeaways, just going to go through this really quick. So if you're dealing with something difficult like stress or anxiety or worry or, some kind of repetitive negative emotion, my invitation to you is to stop. First of all, if you're not really sure what it is, maybe give it a label or a name, like I'm feeling anger, I'm feeling jealousy, I'm feeling fear. And invite the feelings associated with that emotion in. And when you give it the space, warriors, when you actually give it the space and time for it to expand and kind of tell you what it is that you need to know, I guarantee you that those emotions won't feel nearly as painful as they do when you stuff them aside or you fester or allow them to ruminate and repeat. It's like the scratched record, right? The broken record over and over and over again. And for those of you who are out there and you're thinking, I don't have time for this. Every time I have a difficult emotion, I'm supposed to sit down and write about it. Well, let me ask you this, okay? And I totally get that because I was there too. In my early days of personal development, I thought I didn't have time to do this. And then I realized I don't have time to not do this because where am I going to be if I don't deal with this? Where is my life going to be in 6 months? I want to grow my business. I want certain things in my life. I want to be able to help more people. And in order to help more people, I need to be aligned. And if I'm not aligned, and if I'm in my stuff, in my anger, in my jealousy, in my fear, I'm not advancing. So again, my invitation to you is to use those emotions as a lesson, as a teacher, and to be grateful for another opportunity to grow and to find your way of working through it. If it's journaling, if it's meditation, I really invite that it's a solo activity and not to go talk to your friend and vent, because sometimes that just festers and makes things worse, unless it's more of a solution-oriented conversation. Does that make sense? Or you have a friend that's really into personal development and gets the process. And then if there's something, if you're realizing like, oh, I'm feeling this way because I haven't been integrity with working out, or I haven't been integrity with making sure my bills are paid on time, or whatever that thing is that maybe could be underneath all of this, my invitation is just to tackle those tasks as soon as possible. And I guarantee, warriors, you are going to feel 1,000 times better. So I hope that this episode helps. I hope that you got some value out of it so that the next time you're in your stuff and your crap and you're finding that you're frustrated in your life, your business, your health, and you're not making the money that you want, or your relationships are on the rocks with certain individuals, just give this a try, right? Because warriors, you probably already know at this point that when it comes to our triggers and when it comes to getting past these challenges in our life, it's not a matter of the other person, or it's not a matter of these circumstances, right? But it is a matter of the relationship that we have with ourselves. So until next week, warriors, I hope you have a wonderful day, that you're having a wonderful month, and I will talk to you next week. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to the Empowered Warrior podcast. It is an honor and a privilege to have you as a listener. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast and would like to help others pave their pathway to freedom, end their disempowerment and suffering, and become an empowered warrior, please share this podcast with your friends and family. Also, it is my intention to help humanity grow and evolve to their highest potential. So if you really enjoy what you're hearing, please help me spread the word by leaving a review in iTunes. Thank you again, and I am so grateful to be able to serve you in this very exciting way.